Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast. I'm so glad you're with us. I hope it's been a great week for you. I know it's been a busy one here in San Diego as we're kind of getting into the fall. I bet it has been for you as well. And if you've tracked what we've been doing over the last, 3 years or more now, we bought a camp. It used to be called Oak Bridge. It was a Young Life camp for years and years. And then we put in a vineyard and an equestrian center and cattle and all kinds of stuff. And one of the original people that were part of the brain trust that made this place possible was Stan Smith. And if you remember, like Stan is a tennis legend. Like this guy stands tall and always will. So I have him on the podcast. I just thought it'd be fun as we explore some of the things that he's been learning about life and faith and the origins of Oak Bridge. And he built the first tennis court out there and the next and the next and the next. So Stan, welcome to the Dream Big podcast.
Thank you very much. That's an appropriate name. It was sort of what kind of got me going way back. I grew up in Pasadena, so not too far from where you are. And
Yes.
that I met my wife at the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club for the first time.
Oh, you did. That's great.
Yes.
Tell me how long ago that was.
Well, that was a long time ago. She was going to Bishop's, and it was a school for girls.
I remember that place.
Now it's a co-ed school that it's not a boarding school, but she was boarding there. And they had she was a good tennis player from New York. And it was kind of like today's academies. You know, there's a lot of good tennis players, a good tennis program. She was one of the better players in the country, actually. So she went to Bishop's, and I was at USC or Pasadena. Then I went to USC, but at Pasadena, I went down. I guess I was in college by this time. I took some lessons from the pro there at the La Jolla Beach Tennis Club, and her team was working out there, and she was taking lessons from the same pro. And so she had broken her arm, and she asked me to sign her cast. She was 15 years old. I was 19 years old, and that was the beginning of. We're going to be married 49 years.
Come on. That's a good long run.
Yeah.
And did you say anything like on her cast, like never change or
No, I said,
we've got a bright future?
no, I think I said, best wishes to you. Good luck, Stan Smith, and she kept it for a long time until it started smelling so bad that she had.
So tell for the people that haven't been introduced to you or don't know you well, they know of you and they Stan Smith. And I've got some sporty looking tennis shoes that are rocking your name. But tell us about a little bit about your career.
Well, a lot of people don't know me. In fact, I wrote a book called Stan Smith. Some people think I'm a shoe. And Rizzoli printed it, and that they did a fantastic job. A lot of photographs of shoes of friends of mine, and it talked about my career, little short stories about my career, and stories about the shoe. But I grew up in Pasadena, and went to USC. And when I was, this is a dream thing, but when I was 16, almost 17, I had 4 golds, which I called dream golds. And I didn't even tell my parents because they were so out of sight, really, for me. I wasn't even one of the top, 16-year-olds in Southern California. And the first goal was to make the U.S. Davis Cup team and represent the United States. The second was to become the best player in the U.S. The third was to win Wimbledon. And the fourth was to be the number 1 player in the world. And so I told this girl I was dating in high school, and she actually wrote me a note after I won Wimbledon, and she remembered those 4 golds. Like I said, she was the only one I really told them to, but it was something that motivated me. And every time I was on the court, I would do a few more rope jumps, or I'd do a few more sprints or calisthenics or sit-ups or whatever it was, hit a few more serves. And it was always with those goals in mind that got me going. And little did I believe that actually those goals came true. I mean, it was crazy. In fact, I got this little trophy here that you might have seen on television. It's the Wimbledon trophy. And the Wimbledon trophy is about twice as big as this.
Yeah.
This is a replica that they give you when you win it. So that became one of the goals that I had. so I was fortunate to be able to do that. And then after I graduated from college, I went to the pro tour and started working towards those goals. And at the same time, I did some things that besides the company that we have, Stan Smith Events, almost everything I do has to do with kids. And I one time wanted to start a YMCA. And here on Hilton Head, I ended up being the capital campaign chairman for the Boys and Girls Club building that we built. And and we've been involved, my wife has been involved as a volunteer ever since. And I'm on the board. And it's, the motto for that is a positive place for kids. And it certainly is. And you've had a lot of kids say, not kids, but later adults say that, that the Boys and Girls Club of America saved my life, literally. And so that was one thing. And then when I was also around 25 or so, John Block had the property in Ramona, right?
Yeah, that's it. I'd rather say it's west of Julian rather than east of Ramona, but it's definitely east of Ramona.
It's around there. So he asked me, he bought the property, he built basketball camps, and he said, would you like to do a week of tennis camps? And so we built some tennis courts, and for several years, I came out and ran a tennis camp for kids, and to talk about tennis, but also about my faith in Christ and the importance of that in my life. And so that's been a big part of it. And then I've been involved with the Heritage Classic Foundation, which runs our big golf tournaments after the Masters. It's the RBC Heritage, and became the chairman of the charities committee. So we have about 85 charities, local charities, like the Boys and Girls Club, that we give money to. And we've generated just over $50 million for those charities, those local charities, through that foundation. And that's been great. The other thing is I've been on a scholars committee, which is really fun because we vetted these kids that send in their applications to get money for college, seniors in high school, and then we would get them down to about 10 or 12, and we ended up interviewing them. And that interview day has been a special day because it really gave you faith in today's youth, because a lot of these kids were talking about areas that were over my head as far as, nuclear physics and agricultural biology and things like that. And so that was been special for me. And so, and I have an academy. I just came back just a few minutes ago from it's called the Smith Stearns Tennis Academy. We have about 50 kids between 12 and 18. And our goal is to get them to a college that's appropriate for their tennis and their academics. And so, I relate some of the experiences in my life. I just told today a story, actually. Most kids think that they're the only ones that can't finish a match. It's always hard to get that last point. And I told them a story about Rod Laver, who's won the Grand Slam twice, and no male or female has won the Grand Slam more than once, and only 5 have won a Grand Slam in general, in the men and the women. And I told him that when he was serving for the match, the second time he was winning the Grand Slam in New York, he could barely lift his arm because he was so nervous. And then I told the story about, you might have seen the match with Alcaraz and Djokovic just last weekend in Cincinnati, but Djokovic was at match point he's the number 1 player in the world. And he served his second serve like 60 miles an hour and barely got it to the net. He was so nervous and his arm was so tight. And so I try to just encourage these kids that they're not the only ones that are struggling with their game. And hopefully they'll translate to their lives as well, because I'm encouraging them to, when they're on the court, to give it their best shot. And they might as well, why not? And then they can look back and say they've tried as hard as they could.
What I really like, Stan, is that you've been working on your legacy since you were 20 years old. You had a beautiful idea and some beautiful, bold ambitions. And then to see, you didn't just win the big trophy. And a lot of people would say, I'm there, but that was the launching pad to say, what about other people? And so I'm just thinking about the person that's listening. They're just stuck in traffic right now. They
Yeah.
just worked a really long day at a job that it was an okay job when they got it, but they're so over it. What would you say to a person? I have a bias towards quitting things. My dad told me once when I was a young man, Goffs don't quit. And I'm like, oh, actually, we do all the time. We just quit the right stuff and we stick with the right stuff. So, what do you tell somebody who's feeling like they're in a job or in a circumstance that just feels stuck? Well, what is your like kind of life experience be? Offer a little hope to that person
Well,
about.
I think the key is to find something that really rings your bell, a passion. And you may be stuck in a job that's not very fulfilling and it's not doing much. And you also, I think, at least I feel this way, is that I've been blessed with so much as far as, uh, you know, being able to do things that I've really loved to do. And, uh, and I think if you get into something you really enjoy doing, that's going to be the key. Now, the thing that, like I said, is that you always, you get more from giving than you do from getting. And Churchill said that, Arthur Ashe said that, you know, with a quote saying, uh, life, you get from what your life, but your life is made up from what you give. And so basically, I know that when people are sad or struggling, if they go to help somebody, sometimes it helps them more than the person they're helping. So I would seek out people that need some help and then see if you can help them. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, you're going to probably, uh, have a more fulfilling life.
Yeah, it's that's reminding me of some words from about Paul about a buddy Timothy. He said that guy Timothy takes a genuine interest in other people's welfare. And so to just say, I want to lift my eyes beyond making me the center of everything and say, how can I jump into somebody else's, not to avoid my pain or struggle or whatever, but to understand that the other people are dealing with some similar stuff or different stuff, and not get lost in that, but get aware of it and get involved in it. I bet there's a practice that you've had over the years that served you really well. I'll tell you one of mine. About every day, I'll send about 3 notes to different people I don't even know. I'm not looking for new best friends, but to just reach out to people who have had either a tangential impact on me or a direct impact. They don't know me from Adam. And again, I'm not doing it so I can go take a selfie with them. I'm doing it because I want to take an interest. I want to let them know how grateful I am for the part they played. Take even the Oaks. I mean, I can just say thank you for your participation with a bold guy named John Block to make a place for junior high kids that then ended up somehow in our lap, so that we can make a place where people can get better at whatever they need to get better at your faith, get better at your, and it really comes from just taking a moment to reach out to people, to express a little gratitude. What are some of the practices you've used that have been helpful in kind of just keeping you centered in your faith, keeping your head in the game?
Well, I was able to reach out to a kid who was in South Africa, Johannesburg, and he was struggling, wanted to come to the United States, and I kind of helped with my coach, and my coach wrote letters to a couple other coaches, and then we got him into the United States to play tennis at school, and he turned out to be just an okay tennis player, but he became a very good writer, and he wrote a book called Kaffir Boy, and Oprah Winfrey had him on the show. Then he got married, and my wife went to Princeton after she was in California, the first class of women, and he married a girl, and they had three kids, and all 3 kids ended up going to Princeton. And so
Oh,
one of those moments that was my wife particularly, we went, the first one, we had breakfast as she was going to Princeton just to send her off. And that was a special moment to know that just a seed I planted, or that actually my wife and I met him first together, that seed we planted with him. He was able to come to the United States. He graduated from college. He married a wonderful girl. He had 3 unbelievable kids. And now they're making an impact in their lives, what they're doing. And so a lot of times that I've spoken, and I know you've done a lot of speaking, but a lot of times I've spoken, people have come up to me and said, I heard you speak at University of Georgia in 1971. And I said, oh, what was it? You were at the tennis court. There was about 90 of us in the crowd, and you talked about your faith. You talked about what's important to you. And that made an impact in my life. And so those are little stories that helped me along the way. Then along the way of what you just said, I'm trying to connect with some of my buddies I played on the tour with, because, most of them are in the West Coast where you live. And I'm back here in Hilton Head Island. So I'm making an intentional effort to try to connect with those guys and either, find a place where we can meet, or at least get on the phone and chat and kind of keep that connection, because, those guys are really important in my career.
Yeah, think about that as you're listening, stuck in traffic or out on a jog. What's one call you can make, a text you could send, maybe somebody who is really pivotal to you along the way. I hadn't paid the money because I didn't have the money to pay for the tuition to law school. And so when I graduated, everybody has their caps and gowns and all that. And they do the ceremony. They shake hands with your right hand. They give you your diploma, and left in like a big envelope. And my parents and grandparents, everybody was there to celebrate with me. And they wanted to see the diploma, but I couldn't tell them I didn't get one because I owed like thousands of dollars of the thing. And it was my first opportunity of advocacy and misdirection to say, just change the subject, go to something else. Because I was paying, I didn't get my diploma. I bet it was 3/4 of a year before I could pay off enough and it was more than just library late charges. It was like the tuition that I owed. One of the things that I did with this diploma is I found my first grade teacher, Mrs. Martini. I mean, who wouldn't have a teacher named Mrs. Martini? First grade is the only place she could survive unscathed. But I found her, she was with an elderly group of people, and I gave her my diploma. I said, man, I've been trying to get this thing for 3/4 of a year. I'm never going to put it on the wall.
Was that San Diego State?
No, she was San Jose, California. She was the teacher, and it was University of San Diego. I got my diploma from, and so I gave it to her. And I'm telling you, there was something in that moment that just changes when we make the camera off of us and we just start saying thanks to the people behind and reaching out to the people in front. I don't mentor anybody. I just would like to be a friend to people, and then to just honor people. We brought John Block up. And he blocks the sun. I mean, he's literally, he's like 9 feet tall. And he was one of the guys along with you that were so instrumental early on in the life of this camp. For what, 40, 50 years ago, when this thing happened initially. Yeah. So we brought John up, not knowing that there was 70 people in there to give him a standing ovation, just say well done. And there was something beautiful. And I want to be one of those persons that says in the scriptures, it said, when we meet God, there's 2 words we're hoping to hear from him. Well done. Yeah. And so I just want to thank you, Stan, for jumping on with us for this. I want more people to know about men and women in the faith that have accomplished a lot, but what you will be known for is the guy that could swing a racket like nobody. What you will be remembered for is a guy who is kind, who is gracious, who's generous with his time. These are the kinds of things I want to work on in my trailing out years. Between 65 and 142, I want to spend the rest of my days just working on that legacy. Presidents have, presidential libraries and all that. I want to think, whether you are 20 years old and listening to this or 90 years old and listening to this, work on your legacy, a legacy of love. Hey, one last word from you to the people listening. What are you going to leave us with? Your sage advice. Wrap it all up. This is your serve. No pressure.
Well, serve is a good point, because that's been a big part of my game. And
bingo. That'll
And I think
preach.
that I've done a lot since fishing the tour of serving other people and serving other organizations and trying to do something to particularly give young people a chance, because it's a tough time for young people, especially with social media and the pressures that they have, and one of the biggest problems I think is not only for young people but for us is comparison. The big word comparison. You compare yourselves in so many different ways of how much you have, how much you've made, what your job is, and your prestige, your fame, and I've met a lot of people that are pretty famous, from presidents to royalty to CEOs, and I'm not necessarily so impressed. I'm impressed with some teachers and with people that are reaching out to help other people who are struggling a bit, and so I think it's you want to get fulfillment from doing something meaningful in your life. And I guarantee it's not accumulating, funds or gold bars. That's not going to be very meaningful at all. So I would encourage people to reach out and do your best to try to help others that are in need.
Yeah, don't make this, as you're listening, don't put this on your to-do list. Don't, like, Jesus never asked anybody to agree with him. I can't find one scripture where he said, agree with me. He said, like, let's go do this thing. The only thing that matters is faith expressed in love. And the crazy thing is God doesn't need your help. I wake up every single morning and I ask God, what can I do for you? And he's like, not a thing. What he
Well,
wants is our hearts. Yeah.
another thing to remember, I think, when you've got an audience of young people and people a little bit older, is that in the Bible, I don't think there's ever mentioned retirement. And no matter what age you are, you can still do a lot for other people. And certainly wisdom that you've accumulated over the years can be very beneficial to younger people or people of any age as to, doing something with your life. I'm now eligible for retirement, but I don't even think about it. It's not even a word that I even use. So it's
Yeah.
this
That a boy.
context. So I encourage people not to
Come on.
say, okay, I've done enough. I'm just going to sit and watch the sunset and sunrise.
I I just love that you. If I walk through your house someday, and that's a goal, with you there, I'm not going to do a break and enter, but I think you've got more silver in your bookcases than like Paul Revere. Like you've got
Well,
plaques and plates and
I can
trophies.
show you
And
the trophy case, but
come on, spin that over a little bit.
want to
Does
see
your
that?
yeah?
All right, I think I can do it. I can get this thing
That's
going.
awesome. Spin that thing.
Okay, I'm this is
Yeah, that's a lot of
the trophy
silver.
cabinet. There's a little bit of that's my U.S. Open trophy there, and the Masters trophy, my racket from China. You there? Racket from China.
Yeah.
And then a little Hall of Fame plaque, Beverly Hills, California, Southern California Tennis Hall of Fame. So that's one of the halls of fame. And then this is a Davis Cup trophy, kind of replica, and my racket. I had the Stan Smith Wilson racket, and this ball was signified the longest Davis Cup match. Davis Cup match. It was 7-9, 37-39, 6-3, 6-1, 6-4.
Oh
6
my
hours.
gosh.
And here's
Oh
some
my
shoes that
gosh.
these are some ceramic shoes that were made. And here's a couple of my favorite pairs of shoes here. This is made from a graffiti artist in Athens. And then this is one made in Holland, clogs. And then this one here is some very special shoes. We had a fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club, and they made these to give out to a special guest. So this,
Stan,
some of
so good.
the things, but they're really not. I don't spend much time looking at those things. Not that.
Yeah, what I really like is this idea, legacy of love. So I just want to thank you, Stan. Thank you for leading with love, for spending some time with us. And for you guys, you've been listening to the Dream Big podcast. What I hope you'll do now is to say, I'm not going to swing a tennis racket. People would die. But what I'm going to do is swing hard for the fences. What I'm going to do is try to reach out to 2 or 3 people today, take a genuine interest in them, and to make that my legacy. And Stan, thank you
That's
for
great.
your legacy of love. I appreciate
That's
it.
great.
Thanks for listening,
Thanks, Bob.
everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay.